What if I told you that one man born in a tent on the frozen steppes of Central Asia, abandoned by his own tribe as a child, taken prisoner as a teenager, went on to conquer more land than any human being in the history of the world? Not Alexander the Great. Not Napoleon. Not the Roman Empire at its peak. One man. One lifetime. More than 24 million square kilometers under his control. This is the story of Genghis Khan. And it's stranger, bloodier, and more fascinating than anything Hollywood has ever put on screen. A child with no future. The year is 1162. Somewhere near the Aenon River. In what is today Mongolia, a woman named Holin gives birth to a boy. They name him Temüjin. According to legend, he came into the world clutching a blood clot in his fist. A sign. The shaman said that he was born to be a warrior. His father Yasuge was a minor tribal chief. Not powerful. Not rich. Just one of hundreds of small clan leaders scratching out a living on the steppe. When Temüjin was around 9 years old, his father arranged his marriage to a girl from a neighboring tribe, normal practice for the time, and left him there to work for her family, as was the custom. On the way home, Yasuga stopped to eat with a group of Tatars. They recognized him. They poisoned him. He died before he could reach his family. And just like that, Temüjin's life fell apart. His tribe abandoned his family. His mother, Holin, was left alone with 5 children and no protection in one of the harshest environments on Earth. They survived by eating roots, berries, and whatever small animals they could catch. There was no safety net! No allies! No future! Then it got worse! A rival clan kidnapped Temüjin and enslaved him, forcing him to wear a heavy wooden collar around his neck. He escaped with help from an unlikely sympathizer and slowly, painfully, began to rebuild. The rise. What happened next is one of the most remarkable personal transformations in human history. Temüjin was smart, charismatic, and utterly ruthless when he needed to be. He began forging alliances, first by recovering his kidnapped wife, Bert, then by aligning himself with a powerful blood brother named Jamuka, and later with a senior Khan named But Temüjin wasn't interested in being someone's ally. He was interested in being everyone's leader. One by one, he defeated the rival tribes of the Mongolian steppe. The Tatars, the people who had poisoned his father, he practically wiped from the face of the earth. The Merkits, the Naimans, each victory brought more warriors under his banner. More horses, more resources, more power. In 1206, something happened that had never happened before in Mongolian history. All the tribes of the steppe, every clan, every chief, every warrior, gathered at the Aenon River and declared one man their supreme ruler. They gave him a new title, Genghis Khan, the Great Khan, the universal ruler. The boy who had been abandoned, enslaved, and left for dead was now the most powerful man in Central Asia. He was around 44 years old, and he was just getting started. The war machine. Here's what most people don't understand about the Mongol conquests. It wasn't just about brutality. The Mongols were, without question, terrifyingly violent. But what made them unstoppable was something far more interesting. They were the most sophisticated military force of their era. Genghis Khan completely reformed the Mongolian army. He abolished the old tribal structure, where soldiers fought for their clan leader. Instead, he organized his forces into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, and loyalty went to him, not to bloodline. He promoted based on merit, not birth. A soldier from a nobody family could rise to command 10,000 men if he was good enough. The Mongols were masters of psychological warfare. They sent spies into every city they planned to attack, gathering intelligence for months. Before the first arrow flew, they spread deliberate terror. Cities that surrendered were spared. Cities that resisted were annihilated to the last person. Word spread. Many cities simply opened their gates. They were also geniuses at adapting. When they encountered walls they couldn't ride through, they didn't give up. They recruited Chinese engineers who taught them how to build siege weapons. Catapults, trebuchets, firebombs. The Mongols combined the speed of the steppe nomad with the technology of the civilizations they conquered, and their horses. The Mongol cavalry could travel 100 kilometers a day, faster than any army in the world. They could attack, retreat, feign defeat, lure the enemy into pursuit, then turn and destroy them. Tactics so effective that military historians still study them today. The conquests, once Genghis Khan had unified Mongolia. The expansion began on a scale the world had never seen. First came northern China. The Jin dynasty, one of the most powerful states in Asia, had walls, armies, and fortified cities. Genghis Khan dismantled all of it, piece by piece, over years of brutal campaigning. By the time the Mongols were done, huge swaths of northern China lay in ruins. Then came Central Asia, and this is where the story becomes almost unimaginable. The Khwarezmian Empire stretched across modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and beyond. It was wealthy, cultured, and militarily powerful. Its ruler, Shah Muhammad II, made a catastrophic mistake. He executed Genghis Khan's trade ambassadors and diplomatic on. This was, historians agree, one of the worst decisions in the history of civilization. What followed was a wave of destruction so total that some regions took centuries to recover. The great cities of Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, and Nishapur, centers of Islamic culture, learning, and trade. Cities with hundreds of thousands of inhabitants were burned to the ground. The population of Iran may have dropped by as much as 90% in some areas. The sophisticated irrigation systems that had supported agriculture for thousands of years were deliberately destroyed and never fully rebuilt. Genghis Khan wasn't just defeating armies. He was erasing entire worlds. His generals pushed even further west into the Caucasus and southern Russia, south into the Indian subcontinent, north into Siberia. The Mongol Empire was growing in every direction simultaneously. The man behind the legend who was Genghis Khan, really. He was contradictory. He was a man who could order the massacre of an entire city in the morning and sit down to discuss philosophy with a Taoist monk in the afternoon. He had a genuine curiosity about the world. He regularly invited scholars, priests, and thinkers from every religion to his court and interrogated them for hours about their beliefs. He was religiously tolerant in an era of fanaticism, not out of kindness, but out of pragmatism. He didn't care which god you worshipped as long as you submitted to his authority. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, shamans, all were welcome in his empire. All were protected, as long as they paid their taxes and didn't rebel. He created the first international postal system, a network of relay stations across the entire empire that allowed messages to travel thousands of kilometers in days. He established free trade across the Silk Road. He introduced a written legal code. He protected ambassadors and merchants, making international commerce safer than it had ever been. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, allowed goods, ideas, and people to travel from China to Europe for the first time in history. Some historians argue that without the Mongol Empire, the Renaissance might not have happened when it did. And then there's the genetic legacy. Modern DNA studies suggest that roughly 0.5% of the world's male population, about 16 million people, are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. In parts of Central Asia, the figure is closer to 8%. No other individual human being comes close to that number. The end and the legacy. Genghis Khan died in 1227 during a campaign against the Xixia kingdom in northern China. He was around 65 years old. The exact cause of his death remains unknown. Theories range from a hunting accident to typhoid fever to wounds sustained in battle. His burial site was kept so secret that his soldiers reportedly killed anyone they encountered on the way home. It has never been found. He left behind an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. His sons and grandsons would expand it further still into Poland, Hungary, Vietnam, Korea, the Middle East. At its peak, the Mongol Empire covered 24 million square kilometers, roughly the size of the entire African continent, and held 1/4 of the world's population under its control. No empire before or since has ever grown so fast, across such vast distances, in so little time. Was Genghis Khan a monster? Absolutely. The death toll from the Mongol conquests is estimated at 40 million people, 1/10 of the entire world's population at the time. Some regions never recovered. Was he also a visionary? A legal reformer? A patron of trade and intellectual exchange? Also, yes. History rarely gives us clean heroes or simple villains. Genghis Khan was something more complicated and more interesting than either. He was the orphan boy from the frozen steppe who looked at the known world and decided, all of it should be mine. And for one terrifying extraordinary lifetime. It was. If this story blew your mind, wait until you hear about what his grandson Kublai Khan did in China, or how the Mongol army was finally stopped, twice, by one of the most unlikely forces in medieval history. Subscribe, and we'll get there soon.